So just let me know when you're about to press that button.
Okay, so now we're recording.
Are we recording right now?
Yeah.
All right, copy. What's up, everybody? My name is David. I'm running a series on my YouTube channel where I basically interview people with different diagnoses that affect their mental health. And the whole point of it is to empathize with people. It's is basically to destigmatize certain disorders and humanize people afflicted with them. So the best way to watch this is from an unbiased, non-judgmental point of view. Basically, we're just trying to put ourselves in someone else's point of shoes. We're trying to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, you know. So with that being said, introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up? My name is Charlie.
Charlie, my guy Charlie. For everyone who wants to know, me and Charlie, we're good friends. We hang out like every other Saturday at my boy's house. He's a great guy. So Charlie, what is your diagnosis?
I don't have a specific diagnosis because we tend not to receive anything specific. So when I got my diagnosis, it was for like autistic spectrum disorder, as opposed to like Asperger's or like any specific title. Because it's just easier to categorize it by looking at your behaviors and seeing if you match up with a certain set of symptoms and behaviors. And then from that, like a doctor can say, oh, you're on the spectrum, but they tend not to narrow it down more than that.
Is Asperger's like an outdated term, or is that something that's still being used?
I think it's kind of outdated. Like I heard it the first time because my dad is also definitely autistic. And my mom came up to me once and she just kind of started talking about like, hey, I think your dad might have Asperger's, but I think that term comes with like a specific set of behaviors. Like I think when I hear of someone with Asperger's, I think of someone who like behaves socially in a specific way. Like maybe they talk very like monotonously, maybe they don't get along with people super well, maybe they're awkward. But autism is a lot more diverse than that, and there's a lot of different behaviors that can manifest and present differently. So I think it is a little more up to date and correct to just say someone has autistic spectrum disorder, as opposed to like any specific title like that.
Okay. So for you, what is autism then?
I would say it's a neurotype, like it's a specific way my brain works, and it's a specific way I respond to things and feel things and think about things. And it's kind of like if you talk about like a fish being water, like it's kind of like the water I live in. Like it's kind of just the circumstances of how I exist. It's what I see everything through, I think. I think it's kind of like soaked its way through to every layer of my life. So I guess as we talk more, we can get more into specific details of like how that presents.
Okay, well, I went through the DSM-5 and I got the symptom criteria for it, but each one is almost like a paragraph. So I didn't abbreviate it in my own words. I just took I took the parts that were, I basically shortened it down, but each word sentence in here is straight from the DSM-5. So I'm just gonna go down so people can get a better understanding.
Can you explain what the DSM-5 is before you get into that?
Oh, it's the diagnostical statistical manual. It's the fifth one. It's what they use in America. Like everywhere else in the world, I think it's called ICD or ICUD, something like that. The rest of the world uses something else to. It's like for layman's terms, it's like the Bible of disorders.
Gotcha. So it's just outlining the criteria of like how autism is clinically defined.
Yeah. Basically, this is something that I just made up, So I'm gonna go through it real quick. Persistent deficits in social communication and social interactions. Deficits in social emotional reciprocity. I did not say that right. deficits in nonverbal communicative behaviors, deficits in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships, restricted, repetitive patterns of behavior, interest, or activities, stereotyped or repetitive motor movements, insistence on sameness, insistence on sameness or inflexible adherence to routines, highly restricted, fixated interests, and hyper or hyperactivity to sensory input. That last one I know to be true because from my understanding, people who have autism can get very flustered when there's loud noises or when there's just a sensory overload, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a component of it.
Yeah. So that's basically what I was able to surmise from that. So yeah, so I guess this is going back to what you were saying before. What is it like for you having autism?
Well, I guess in order to talk about that, like I also kind of want to address some of the language that was used in the DSM-5, it was called.
Okay.
It was
Anything you want, I can go over whatever you want.
Can you just like read the first bullet point again, for example?
Persistent deficits in social communication and social interactions. So
Yeah.
basically like, it's just harder to communicate with people and it's harder to have, basically that's basically what it is.
So it's really interesting to me that like all these bullet points use language like deficits in this, deficits in that, like restrictive, like it uses a lot of like negative language kind of to describe what autism is, and I think that's just a little bit unfair to the way we experience it, because I don't think I would say I have a deficit in communication or building or maintaining relationships or that kind of thing, but where that perspective comes from and like why that sounds like it was written by a neurotypical is because there definitely is a difference, but not a deficit. And I think anytime you're trying to work across a difference, like there's bound to be some like reduction of quality of the interaction just because there's more work you have to do to understand each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so like
basically what you're saying is it's coming from somebody who is a neurotypical, like you said.
Yeah,
they're judging this what is it, 1 out of 100 people usually get autism. They're judging out of the 99%, they're saying there's a deficit because of that person and it's a negative type of thing. But because them being neurotypicals, they're judging that 1%, but that 1% is kind of like, well, it's not really, it's just different.
it's just different. That's what I mean. Because society was built by neurotypicals, and like most people going around and like talking to people know they're talking to neurotypicals, and like they are able to understand each other a lot more clearly. Whereas for autistic people, like when we interact with neurotypicals, for myself especially, like I struggle to see things the way they do. And I think that can reduce the quality of our interactions. But at the same time, like talking to other autistic people, like I can understand them as well as neurotypicals can understand each other.
Could you give me an example of how the difference is, how it's hard for you to, what was it, view the other?
Yeah.
Can you give me any example off the top of your head?
Yeah, like I would say like interests and hobbies play a big role in that. Like growing up, like in the community I grew up in, like most of the other kids like had sort of a common set of interests. Like the guys tended to like the same movies, the same sports, and like they had things they could talk about with each other that they all had in common, but like none of that interested me as much. So like I kind of had my own things I like to do. Like I had specific video games I like, specific TV shows that were maybe less popular, specific toys. I just like the way I interacted with them was different. So like it's hard to connect with people when you're just fundamentally like interested in doing different things. Like that's maybe one source of a difference that could be labeled as a deficit.
Okay. Is there any other symptom criteria you want me to go over, and you want to give your opinion on it, or?
I could probably talk about any specific item on the list. I kind of just forgot what.
All right. There's deficits in social emotional reciprocity.
reciprocity, that's a really hard thing because like I need different things from social interactions than other people do. So I think this comes back to like why autistic people can be viewed as not having empathy is because we have different emotional needs than other people. So like in any given interaction, like in an argument with a neurotypical, like it might be harder for us to resolve that interaction because we don't know, or we can't tell as much what the other person is looking for, and what we're looking for the other person wouldn't know how to give us. So because of that like emotional disconnect, I think it's easy to label that kind of thing as lack of empathy.
Could you get? I hate to be like, could you give an example? What you are into?
Yeah.
What you know, like what you are, like you said, your interest or your resolve to the disagreement, or your result, what you want to be resolved from the disagreement might be different than the other person. But like, what would be the motivations? What would be the, that's different from what they want?
Yeah. Well, it's hard for me to speak, I guess, to like what a neurotypical might be looking for out of an argument, but like I think it tends to be more social and have more to do with other people. Whereas like I could be like completely like happy and satisfied, like intellectually and emotionally, like kind of just within myself. So like I'm happy to like sit alone in my camp of what I'm doing as long as like other people aren't trying to interfere with it. Whereas I don't know, it's kind of hard to speak to that without getting a little more personal than I want to get.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, we can keep going. I have a lot more questions, but like, we can go. There's deficits in nonverbal communicative behaviors. So the way you communicate is different.
Yeah, definitely, especially non-verbally too, because like I think like people generally tend to communicate a lot with their face and like their intonation, and like if they're happy they might be smiling, like if they're sad or in pain or like nervous about something you can see that on their face. Whereas like I tend not to do that naturally, and I think the people who know me well but like not too well tend to point out like how much I'm smiling, for example. Like everyone I've known for at least a little bit of time has been like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
You're very.
smiling so much, you must be so happy, blah blah blah. But like that I think is more of a learned behavior. Like if I'm smiling, it usually has nothing to do with my emotional state. I've just kind of learned that like if you walk through life smiling, like you'll get better responses out of people, and like they'll treat you less like you're different.
Charlie. I love that. I love
So
that.
that's like one example. Like if I'm smiling, like it has nothing to do with how happy I am. Like I could be mad, so mad at someone, like I'm about to punch them in the face, and like
But
I would look
you have
exactly
the
like
same
this.
face you have on now.
Yeah, like I have a story about that actually. I almost got fired from a job because of that. Like I used to work as a sound engineer, and this was in college. So like say a student group wanted to have an a cappella show, or they were doing a presentation with microphones, like they would hire us and we would come set up speakers and microphones, and then we would run them for the event and then clean up afterwards. So there was one specific day, one specific event called the library rave, which is at the end of every year in May. um we do like basically a rave under the library, because under our library at school we had a parking garage. So we'd come set up basically like every speaker we had, and then like play music really loud, and we'd have a rave for like half an hour at 9 p.m. or something like that. So I think probably it was before the event. It was like 6 or 7 p.m. Like we had just set up the speakers and we were trying to test everything to make sure it worked. And so the music was loud, right? So I was kind of just standing by my computer playing music, and I couldn't hear anything that was going on basically because it was so loud. And one of the school administrators was really mad that we were playing music before the time slot. She was mad that like people were studying in the library and we were making noise. So she came and like walked right up to me and like started screaming in my face to like turn everything off. And apparently she'd been doing it for like a decent chunk of time, and I didn't even know. And like I was just standing there like this, kind of smiling. And she took that as an insult, like she thought I was making fun of her. And then
Oh, there was a miscommunication in body language.
huge miscommunication. So I didn't even know this interaction happened. And like she later went and complained to my boss and like tried to get me fired over this. And like I didn't even know anything had happened at the time. And
She
that was just
thought
because I was standing there.
she thought you were smirking in her face like an a-hole,
Yep.
like a pompous a-hole, when really it's like, bro, like I got this whole thing going on. See, look, that face right now, that face I wouldn't want to mess with.
Yeah. Like I have to, smiling is like my resting expression. Like I have to put effort into not smiling if I want to not. Like it's just such an ingrained behavior at this point.
Your face just has to hurt after a while.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so deficits in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that's kind of similar to what we talked about before with empathy, where
Yeah.
anyone in the autistic community would just have different social needs. So
Yeah.
like it's just kind of hard to bridge that gap without really good communication.
Okay. Restricted, repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities.
Um, I would definitely say that like there is a narrower range of things I enjoy doing, and I think I enjoy doing them in greater depth. Like not to make an absolute statement about any like one person or group of people, but just kind of in general. It seems like neurotypicals enjoy doing a broader range of activities and less depth, whereas like I'm happy doing like having like 3 hobbies and like just going super deep into it. And like I don't feel the need kind of to branch out more from that.
Bro, I don't even have any hobbies. Like this is becoming a hobby of mine. Like I don't even
Yeah,
have
for
hobbies.
sure.
I'm not. I mean, I have ADHD, so I might not technically be a neurotypical, but
Yeah.
I guess I somewhat am. I don't know, but
I have ADHD too. It gets a little complicated to like separate what's ADHD and what's autism, but I think for the sake
yeah,
of the interview, I'm trying to keep it as separate as I can.
yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. Stereotyped or repetitive motor movements, which is I think what you were talking about earlier with the motor movements, with the smiling. I think that's what they're getting at.
I think they're kind of getting at like something called stimming or like self-stimulating, where it's kind of an ADHD thing too, but I think it's a little different where like someone might just have to do a specific behavior to like release energy or relax themselves or like stimulate themselves or do whatever they need to feel better, like almost like a cat purring. Like for me, for example, like I'll like reach up and like play with my hair a lot like this if I'm not paying attention, or like I'll bounce my leg a lot. I can never leave my fingers still. Like I can't let my hands do nothing. Like you can't see below the camera, but like I have this Lego minifigure that I've kind of just been fidgeting with. So
I
like,
have a hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. I have a quick question. It says
yeah.
3 minutes and 20 seconds remaining.
Oh, I think that's a Zoom thing because we're on free Zoom. I think we only get 45 minutes at a time. So I think we're gonna have to end this meeting and start a new one, but we can just edit the videos together, I think,
All right, you're
in
gonna
the
have to help
final
me do
cut.
that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so you know what? Let's cut off. Let's do that now. Let's end it and then restart it. Can we do
Okay.
that?
Yeah, I'll just email you another link like I did last time, and I'll just start a new meeting.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So on the next one is insistence on sameness, comma, flexible adherence to routines.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything you could relate to that or no?
Um, I would say personally, I could relate to that a lot more as a child, like as a kid. Like I needed specific routines to function. And I didn't like being introduced to new environments, new people, that kind of thing. And I would say now in my life, I think like my insistence on sameness has a lot to do with food. Like I don't really like being introduced to new foods that like I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not. But I think overall, for me at least, that kind of has to do with safety. Whereas just from living in a different society, like people who have expectations of us to be different than we are, like it's scary to be introduced to new things just because the odds are so high that it's going to be a negative experience. And so sameness and routines and patterns are like safe. Like, you know, if you've done something 1,000 times and you've liked it, like, you know that like time number 1,001 is going to be safe. So I think that is kind of a safety net in
Well,
a
I'll
lot
tell
of
you this
ways.
much. I'll try anything once. Like I had crocodile in Florida, and it tasted like chicken, like a seafood chicken. It was amazing, but it was
Mhm.
different. All
Yeah.
right, so next one. Highly restricted fixated interest. I think we kind of covered that. I don't know why that's like a. I feel like that was one of the other ones. At least we kind of broke that down earlier, right?
Yeah, I think everything's kind of a little bit intertwined.
Yeah.
I think I talked about a bit about that in another context, but like to give a personal example, like I'm super fixated on Star Wars. Like I have this whole Star Wars tattoo sleeve, and like my room is full of Lego Star Wars. Like I can just grab something and show it to the camera now. So that's been like pretty persistent throughout my whole life. So I would say like that's an intensity I don't see a lot of other people have for their hobbies and interests, but
You should have seen me a few years ago with Game of Thrones.
yeah.
And then the last one is hyper or hyper reactivity to sensory input.
Yeah, I would say like that's I don't want to try to speak in any medical terms, and I don't want to like try to describe like a medical condition in a way that I'm not knowledgeable about, but there is definitely a real aspect of pain to certain sensory inputs that I think a lot of people don't experience. Like for me, I'm very sensitive to very bright lights and sound, which is I think normal to some degree, but like a dog barking, like I've been physically knocked over by a dog barking next to me too loud, like the way you'd get knocked over if you got punched in the face. And like really bright lights.
I mean, a few of these I've heard of before, but that one is the one most common one that I know of when it comes to it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I asked this question. I might have, and then we might have went back to the symptom criteria. But what's it like for you having autism?
Um, I would say it's like really it is really difficult. Like I wouldn't say the struggles come from autism itself. I would say they come from trying to exist in a society that's so designed for neurotypicals, and like not that I don't mind the way I am at all, but it's very hard to navigate a society that's just completely structured for a different type of person. And yeah, I don't know, it gets hard. Like it's hard meeting people because right off the bat, like we're so different already. Um it just kind of like bleeds into every aspect of my life, and I think makes it a little bit harder than it would be like if I could just understand what everyone else was looking for.
Copy, copy. Okay. Now this is a big one, and this is kind of like almost the point of why I do this. How or if and how does it affect your mental health? Does it affect your health and mental health in a negative way?
I would I would say definitely it does, like in a huge negative way, but again, like not because I'm autistic. Like I don't mind the way I am, or like I don't mind what my needs are, or anything like that. But it just is so much tiring for me to like go through life than I think it is for normal people. Like I think like I grew up in a pretty neurotypical community, and like all my friends can wake up and go to their jobs and like spend all day talking with people, and then like I'm sure it's hard for them, and I'm sure like it's tiring in its own way, but like they can wake up and do it again the next day. But like
It's easier for them to do it.
it's so exhausting to be autistic and like just exist in like what feels like an alien world. Like it's just the most draining thing ever, constantly.
Mm, gotcha,
And like I'm
gotcha.
never gonna get a break from that. Like I was born into society and I'm gonna die in it too. So like it's just always gonna be like that.
Oh, man, I feel you right here on that one. Okay, so when did you find out that you were autistic? Did your parents tell you? Did you always know? Like, did you always know you were different? But like one day your
Yeah,
parents told you, or what?
I think everyone has their own unique way that they come to it, but I think like my own story was that my dad was definitely autistic, and like no one who knew him had any shred of doubt that he was autistic because it's just so obvious, and like not in a rude way, like he just was presented in a lot of stereotypical ways. Like his interactions were weird and awkward, and like his like his expressions and emoting and his movements are all very stereotypical. So everyone knew he was autistic, but he didn't. He was in denial of it his whole life. So I always had kind of a concept of like, okay, there's like autism present in the family. Like that was never foreign to me, but I none of my parents, none of my teachers like ever mentioned to me that I might be. And I got so good at masking and like hiding the fact that I was autistic and like trying to fake being a neurotypical that like I didn't consider it for myself until probably close to the end of high school. And then like during college, I started thinking about it more and more. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably autistic, but like I never saw it as having a real big impact on my life. And then our mutual friend Emily's mom is actually the person
Oh,
who
Emily.
diagnosed me.
Oh, you said mutual friend. You mean Emily?
Emily, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got mutual friend. She's both of our friends. That was weird. But
Yeah, Emily's a good friend of both of ours, and she
yeah.
just had the baby today, by the way.
Yep.
Or
Very
she's in
exciting.
labor at the moment. But yeah,
Um
keep going.
so I did some sessions with her mom and I ended up getting like a real diagnosis only within the last year and a half or 2 years. So like actually having a real diagnosis was pretty new in my life. And like only at that point, like did I start learning about it and understanding like, oh, this is the way I am. This is the reason I'm like this, and this is what's different about me. And like I think I just was able to understand myself a lot better and like address my needs a lot better. Whereas before that, I was convinced I was a neurotypical and I was like so obsessed with trying to fake it and be like everyone else. And I never understood why it was so hard for me before that. But it took forever, I think, for me to.
Exactly. So was it a process for you to like realize, or are you just like once you were told, you were like, oh, okay, or was it a process you had to get over?
Um, I should clarify. Like when I was thinking about it myself before meeting Michelle, I it was a process. Like I realized that like, oh, I do this behavior, I have this behavior, like that's something an autistic person would do. Like maybe I'm a little bit autistic because my dad is, but it slowly got more and more obvious. And I think by the time I received like an official diagnosis, like I kind of knew already. Like I just been like approaching the idea for so long that like once I knew for sure, like I had kind of like I didn't have to deal with it at that point. Like it was kind of just a relief to like have an answer for everything.
Okay, okay, good. I actually, well, I mean, I've only been doing these interviews for so long with people that I know that have different type of disorders or whatever you want to call them. They say a similar thing that it was like a relief to be like to know first of all I'm not alone, and second of all that now I can dive in to and figure out and do the research and see what's going on and
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely super validating, and I think like you can learn a lot more
validate.
about self when you can learn about people who are similar to you as well.
There you go. There you go. So what? All right. So you mentioned. So this one might be a little invalid, but you mentioned that your dad had autism, or he most likely had it. So it was all already in the family. But how did your family take take the news when you had it, if you've told them?
Well, I told my dad, and he just kind of got really flustered and like didn't address it at all because I think like I can't speak to what was in his head, but I think he knew that like if I had been diagnosed, then like it was real for him too. And like this is definitely a man who wants to be in denial about it. So
Yeah.
I don't know that he ever like seriously considered it or processed it. And then my mom, my mom's an interesting person because like she was very receptive to the news when I told her, and like she tried to be nice about it, but like she also never made a single effort to like learn about what autism is or like how to be accommodating, and like she would complain about things that I did like as an autistic behavior. So she was very two-faced about it. Like she would, when I brought it up to her, she would try to be supportive, and then like in the course of living our lives, like she would be like just constantly invalidating about it, and it's just very hard to be around her for that reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like to be very personal on this, but I don't like to be too personal. But I was very, very close with someone who was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and her mother did the same thing when she was diagnosed, and I told her, we told her, and all that. She didn't even try to
Yeah,
figure out what it is to see why she's acting the way she's acting. And it's like, you're her mother, your mother is your mother. Like, they should at least make an attempt to figure out what's going on, and then after knowing the diagnosis, to continue coming at you for the things that you can't even really help. I mean, to a certain
yeah,
degree, you're a smart individual, so to a certain degree, you can, try to, not improve, change some of the way you do some of the ways you do things or whatever. But your whole thought process is different. So the fact that
yeah.
your parent isn't even trying to take the time to understand that and give you some leeway, give you some, it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing. I've witnessed it, not for autism, but I've witnessed it before, and it broke my heart.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know. I mean, with parents, it's especially difficult because I feel like there's kind of, I've never been a parent, so I'm not speaking from experience, but like more from observation that like parents don't want to see flaws in their kids because then they know that's going to reflect on them. So then
exactly.
like
Exactly.
they'll, like, so my family's really kind of a mess because we have like autism and ADHD from my dad's side, and then depression and borderline personality disorder from my mom's side.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. I already know. Yeah.
so none of like my parents can't really deal with that because like my dad can't acknowledge that I'm autistic because then he has to acknowledge that he's autistic, and then my mom like can't deal with her like depression or personality disorder in my sister because then she knows like for herself that that's going to be a real thing for her, and then she's so caught up in it that like she can't take care of herself enough to take care of me. Like I think she never tried to be accommodating for me because she was just so caught up in her own life, like she didn't even know what I was saying to her almost.
Yeah, I'm not even. We're gonna stick on the topic, but
Yeah,
just because I know a lot about borderline personality disorder,
yeah,
and that like it's almost impossible to get that person out of their own world to empathize with you and
yeah.
try to, so that it's just
That's a whole
like
separate conversation
it
for
does. Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. You just take what you can get when it comes to that, And I love all my
Yeah.
borderlines. I love all my borderlines. I'm not coming at any of you. I'm just saying that might be the case in this situation. Okay, so do you happen to know about, because I'm assuming you're a high functioning autistic person,
Um,
or is that a derogatory term? Low, high,
no, I think that's a pretty
tell
fair
me.
assessment. Like I think what you're kind of like what that's getting at is like how well you can function in neurotypical society. So like
Yes.
I have for example, like I have a full-time job. Like I work as a software engineer, and like I for the most part like can manage my own life. Like I have my own apartment, I have a cat. Like I have
And you're
on the
brilliant.
outs
You're brilliant. You're a brilliant person. I know personally. So
thank you. So like definitely from the outside looking in, like I could be labeled as high functioning because I can do most of the same things. But I don't think it's derogatory at all. Like I think it's just kind of an objective metric of like the needs of any autistic individual. But like it's definitely not easy. Like it takes me so much more energy, I think, to do like what like to have the things I have. Like I think it just takes me so much more energy than it would take any of like my neurotypical peers. And like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a fair metric, I think.
Now, so on the opposite end, I know you aren't, well, yeah, low functioning, high functioning, but what, from your knowledge, what exactly does low functioning?
Um, I'd say that like a low functioning autistic person might need support just to function in their day-to-day life. So like they might struggle with their career and money, and like they might not be able to make enough to support themselves. Um they might not like be able to feed themselves consistently. Like they might need someone to shop for them. They might need someone to help them clean their rooms. So like day-to-day things they might just need support with.
I work with a few autistic people, and I had to train this guy Ben. I love Ben to death. If Ben is ever watching this, I love you. Um, but I don't know if there's a mid range. I was told he's high functioning, but like I can sit here and have a conversation with you, talk with you, I've hung out with you a million times. To me, he seems a little bit more maybe like not low, but like mid. But he holds it. He has a job. He holds a job. He does what he has to do. You know. But when it comes to the socialness of it, it's you can kind of tell there's something lacking there a little bit more, I guess. You know. And I don't mean to use any words that are meant to hurt anybody or harm anybody, you know. But yeah, that's why I want to ask the low and high functioning question, because I work with multiple people, and the range for me is just so, and because I don't have a clear understanding of autism, that the ranges kind of confuse me a little bit, because I see people who can't do anything. I hear of autistic people who really can't do anything for themselves at all, and there's people like you who has their own apartment in Manhattan, and is a software engineer. Like Jesus.
Yeah. Like it's definitely a huge spectrum, and I don't think you can really fully define either end. Like
Yeah.
Walter White from Breaking Bad, like you could say he's so high functioning, like most people wouldn't even try to label him as like autistic, but like he 100% is. And like on the other end, like you could find someone who like can't get a job, can't make friends, like they might not seem verbal, they might be completely nonverbal, and have other ways of communicating. So like that, you know, there's just so many things that affect your ability to get by in a neurotypical society, and like communication is such a big piece of that. So like even a relatively minor difference, like someone who's autistic and nonverbal, but like they can communicate, you know, maybe they speak sign language, maybe it's written for them, like they might still be a fully intelligent person who just has different communication needs, but like that's the kind of thing that could get you labeled as low functioning. So it's hard to define, I think, where any one given person is.
No, because I love my guy Ben. Every time I walk in, he goes, "Hey Dave," or he goes, "Hey Dave," and he gives me the softest fist bump in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I love that. Anyway, next thing. So I guess this is a good leading into this. Is there any misconceptions of autism you would like to clear up? We were talking about this. We were talking about this right before we recorded.
We were.
Yeah.
I was going to reference that same conversation. Like, I think a really common stereotype is that people who are autistic don't have any empathy, and there definitely are non-empathetic autists. So I'm not trying to invalidate like their experience or anything, but I think it's a misconception to generalize that none of us do. And there are even autists who are hyper empathetic, like they just feel so much of other people's feelings that it can be overwhelming for them. But I think kind of where that misconception comes from is they react differently to different things. So like a dead kitten, like you might show someone and they'll be sad about it. Like you show the same thing to an autist and like they don't react at all to the dead kitten. But then like if they spill their coffee, or if they see someone else spill their coffee or stub their toe, or like, you know, there's just different things they respond to. So I think they kind of get labeled as being unempathetic because they don't react to the same kind of situations in the same way that a neurotypical might. But
it's funny with that dead kitten example.
Yeah.
And I do in no way, shape, or form do I want to compare a sociopath with an autistic person. But the way that an autistic person, from what your example was, might not care about a dead kitten, a sociopath probably wouldn't care about a live kitten, let alone a dead kitten. And it's just the depths of empathy. I'm not saying they're the same thing or even comparable, but I feel like it's somewhere, wherever in the brain. Wherever I have a little thing right here where it's like the little different parts of the brain, wherever it is in the brain that is responsible for empathy, and that there's a disconnect there for both. For your example of those people who have autism that have low deficits of empathy and sociopaths, there's definitely some type of weird connection there. But that's getting off the topic. I just that's something I always noticed, and it was just, it kind of stuck with me. I did a lot of research, and it always came up, and I was like, what is that? But I should just be a neurosurgeon and figure it out myself. But okay, so what about the differences between girls with autism and boys? Do you know what might be the because from my understanding, autism in boys shows way easier. Like, it's way easier to show to spot an autistic male than it is an autistic female. Like an autistic female can like pass the test or pass or fail the test for autism, as in like they'll be an autistic female but take the test and come out as not autistic, something along the lines of that. But
I mean,
if you can
I would
clarify.
say a lot of the like definitions of how autism presents, like that we've been talking about, are kind of stereotypically male. Like all the autistic women I've known, I didn't guess myself that they were autistic. Like they had to tell me, or their friends had to tell me. And I think what it comes down to, I'm not an expert, but like they're just socialized differently. Like they have higher social motivation and they're more capable of maintaining relationships and friendships kind of in the way that neurotypical society expects. And they can communicate better and emote better and in more common, like expected ways. So it is just so much harder to notice it. And then I think also a consequence of that is it's so much harder for them to get diagnosed and receive any kind of support, is because they might not, they might not like show the behaviors that a doctor is looking for. So they might just be dismissed and then have to like just be left on their own pretty much.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah, man. I actually I don't want to get into a specific example, but yeah, you're right, and I've heard that so much. I've researched that a lot, and I still could not all the research I did, I still could not come up with like, okay, so what would the criteria be for a female with autism? Sure, I can Google it and it'll come up, but like it's nothing. It's not clear enough to me.
Yeah.
I'm not the smartest. I'm not the smartest, dude. But I could read. It wasn't clear enough to me. Okay, so what? Like, I should have wrote that down too. But anyway, okay. So do you think people perceive you differently?
Yeah, definitely they do. Like
In what ways? In what ways as well?
specifically socially, like I think like for example, none of my coworkers, like I fit in at my work because work is such a transactional environment. Like I can just do my job and everyone can recognize, oh, Charlie's doing his job, like he fits in. And so that's kind of an easy environment to get buy-in. But like socially, like in college, like in friend groups, like I tend to talk way less, especially in groups and other people, just because like in a group of neurotypicals, like I don't relate that much to anyone. Like I don't know about the things they know about because interested in different things. So like I tend not to keep up with the conversation, and then I feel like I tend to get like seen as different, like as awkward. Like people just notice. People are so interested in verbal communication, and they really like tend to fixate on like any kind of like irregular behavior in that regard.
So, but what do you think that they think of you?
What do I think that they think of me? It's hard to tell. Like, I don't know what people like about me generally. Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes I talk and people laugh and I don't know like why they think I'm funny. But like, I think on the
That's happened
negative,
to me. You've had me cracking up before, and you might have been thinking like, "Why is this guy?" But you know me, I laugh all the time, I
yeah.
joke all the time, so it's just me.
Um, but yeah, like I think people think I'm quiet. They think I'm weird. I think they think I'm hard to read just because I don't express myself in the same ways that they do.
I have another coworker. I'm not gonna say his name. He's autistic, uh, and and I think he gets extra nervous around girls, and girls will female coworkers will talk to him or say something, and he literally will look at them and just walk the other way, and then they'll be like, oh, he's rude, or I'll bring up my guy. I almost said his name. I'll bring up my guy. Oh my guy, yo, he's mad cool, and then they'll be like, oh, he's never said a word to me, and I'm just like, and I don't feel comfortable putting other people's business and mental status on display for other people. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to give his business out there. But I had to at one time, like, he's autistic, right? Like he's a cool dude, but me and him, we sit and talk and chat at the bus stop waiting for the bus every day at 9 o'clock. But like very, very nice guy. And he's pretty talkative. But like he has issues, but he has to get comfortable with you. This is like
Yeah.
he has like a year and a half of taking the bus together, waiting to the bus together all the time. And you know me, I chat, I talk to people even if I don't know them. So I have a weird thing about me where I get people to open up. So like I just found that out about myself recently, and I had to tell people, I'm like, just them. I was like, he's autistic. Like, you got to cut him some slack. He's a great guy. He's intelligent. It's just he has problems with communicating, especially, and I noticed around females. But
Yeah, I would say like I can definitely relate to that. Like most of the friends I have, like I've had since I was like probably 10. And it definitely takes me a pretty long time to connect with people. Uh and then like interactions like the ones you're describing, like interactions with a stranger, like it can be really difficult to understand what they want kind of. And I think like in my own experience, like I've backed out of interactions where I thought like trying to go through with the interaction would just cause more harm than good. Um, so that's definitely complicated. Like it's hard to say like why any one individual might want to back out of an interaction like that. But I don't think like it's wrong to assume that someone's just being rude or like that they don't like you or don't want to talk to you. But it just like is a whole different paradigm of interaction, I think.
copy. Quick question: are these 30-second, 30-minute long videos? 30-minute long, or 20-minute long?
Um, each each Zoom meeting is 45 minutes, I think, and then our last meeting we
There's no
talked.
way that first one wasn't 45 minutes.
We I think it was about 40 because we talked for a while and then we started the meeting. So like the recording I have from the first video is about 20 minutes long, but I think we have another half hour or so of this meeting.
No, it says 9 minutes left. So
Oh,
that
it's
means
counting down. I thought that was counting up. I see.
no. So I think they're each 20 minutes long.
Okay, that makes more
Okay,
sense.
okay. So okay. I just want to know how much I want to have the fast five. So we'll do this to the end, and then we'll just do one more because I still have a few more, and then it'll be an hour long.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I asked, how do you think people perceive you? Do people think do people perceive you differently? How do you perceive others?
Uh,
I know it's confusing, like you said. You kind of mentioned that, but
no, I have thought a lot about that. I've never been asked that before, but I have thought a lot about that. Like,
I got you, bro. This is what I'm here for.
yeah, like my outlook on the world is definitely so skewed because like for so long, like all my interests and hobbies and things have been things that are very special to me, but then like rejected by everyone else. So like I'm used to being treated like there's something wrong with the way I do things, and I think like over time that's made me really critical of like how everyone else does things. So like it's hard to see people doing something and like not want to think like, if I don't care about it, it's so easy for me to just think like, oh my god, that is so stupid. Why does anyone care about that? Um so I don't know. I think like I tend not to understand why people care about things the way they do. Um and I think I've like tended to be overly critical of like the way people are living their lives. Which I don't love about myself.
Overcritical how?
I just
Get
like
an example.
my first instinct is always to like look for what's wrong with something or like why it doesn't matter or like why it's not worth doing. And I think like that kind of analytical mindset, like it's part of what makes me a good engineer. Like it makes me good at problem solving, but like it's very difficult to apply that to people because like most people are just like doing their best to try to live their lives. And like if you look for things that are wrong with someone, like you're always gonna find them because every human is obviously like flawed
Well, I
in
can
their
tell
own
you,
way.
man, I got a
Yeah.
million things wrong with me, but
Yeah.
I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I let everyone know I'm just me all the time. But you're
Whereas
right though.
like
I gotta say this though. The way you say how you view the first thing you might look for is being critical or what might be wrong with a person. You also have the higher um, the bird's eye view of realizing that this might not be the right way to look at it.
yeah.
Some people only have that first step and don't have this second. So
I
kudos to
try to
you.
see everything from every angle. I
Same
think
with
I
me.
try to
Same
think
with me.
I think about things from like so many perspectives other than mine that like I think I've almost lost like some of my own identity doing that. Cause like if
Yeah.
someone
Oh man, I feel that.
yeah, like if someone's mad at me, I'll be like, I understand the situation. You should be mad at me. I suck for doing that, for example. Like is one kind of thing. Or like I don't know, like I feel like I've experienced ego death enough times, like I understand like my opinion exists as like a derivative of like my perspective and my life and my context. And that's unique to me, but like that's also so unimportant in the grand scheme of like how much other truth is out there. So like I don't know, I'm not that married to my opinion. Like if someone knows more about something or like has more information, I'll try to see it from their point of view. But yeah, I don't know. I try to be objective about like everything, including myself.
So you don't view people in a negative. I mean, you might at first view people in a negative light, but you also do view people in a positive light as well.
It takes me work to get there because like I never relate to people. Like if someone comes to me and is excited about something, like I'm not gonna get why they're excited about it because it might not be something that interests me. So like that's something for me personally that I think makes it very hard to maintain friendships and relationships because I'm just so inclined to be like, I don't care. It's not my thing.
Well, here's an example, and I'll throw names out there just because we have mutual friends.
Yeah.
Well, like I don't want to know about how you view me in a negative light, but you got to view me in some positive lights with certain things, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure, right? You don't gotta get examples, but Jason, you know,
I was
and
actually gonna bring up Jason as like a counterpoint to
do it,
myself because like
shout out to Jason, do it.
shout out to Jason. Like if you bring anything up in front of Jason, he'll share his opinion about why it's great and then he'll make a very strong argument for it. So like I like being around him because like anytime I'll start criticizing something for no reason, like he'll immediately jump in and be like, no, this is like why you should view it from a more positive light. Um I don't know. I think that's a really cool way to be. I would I would be like that if I could be, but
Don't break my heart. Don't break my heart. All right, don't get me crying on camera. Listen, I don't know how many people. Like I told people, 100 people might watch this, 1,000 people might watch this, 100,000 people might watch this. I don't know. Don't get me crying on camera, right?
all right.
He said, all right. Um, this one we kind of already discussed, but Is there any specific? Did you come across any difficulties having autism specifically? Like, is there anything you can think of that? But I guess we kind of did go over that.
Yeah, I would say like socially are the things I struggle with. Like I am really bad at meeting new people and making new friends. I think it's just because like I don't know the things that people know about. Like I feel like even though I grew up in New York, I was born in White Plains, I've lived here my entire life. I feel like I grew up in a completely different culture just because like the things I know and the things I grew up with are so different from what everybody else knows. That like it's just hard to fit in with like a different set of knowledge kind of.
Got you. Got you. Okay, listen. Right here, we only have 2 minutes left, so
Yep.
let's cut it off, and then let's redo it again. Well, I mean, let's redo the third part, and then
Yeah.
I only have literally, I have like probably 10 minutes worth of stuff to ask. So,
Okay.
all right. So we back. Um, so we talked about, do you come across any difficulties having autism? Do you think there's any advantages, superpowers? What do you
I
you know
think
from your
there's definitely situational advantages. Like I don't think there's any one thing that like just universally makes my life better, but I think I can be objective about a lot of other things where other people are less likely to be. Um, like especially emotionally. Like I
I
can
was
be
gonna
really
say that. I was gonna ask, like, emotionally.
yeah. Like I can analyze other people's emotions like very analytically and like understand why they feel the way they do. And I think to some extent that makes me a bit less sympathetic because I'm like, it's so obvious you feel this way, like why you feel this way, like why don't you just get over it type of thing. But and I can do that for myself too. Like if I feel any given thing, like I can generally understand why. And then I think and it's an advantage at my job also. Um being autistic just because like looking at code all day is something I can do and like be interested and kind of entertained. And like I just have a very analytical brain, so it's good for writing code. And then
Okay.
I would say like being able to fixate on things super in depth is an advantage for learning because like if you can just sit at your desk all day and like fixate on something for 8 hours, like you're gonna get a lot better at it than someone who can't do that, for example.
I have one thing to mention. I know this interview is not about me, but it's
Hmm.
about him, and I have a story about him. You probably already know what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, actually
There
I
was
have the thing you're talking about too.
if you have it in the room.
Yeah.
Okay, don't pull it out yet.
Okay.
So, all right. So one time I went to my friend's house. He was there. When I got there, he was about 1/8 of the way of the way done with this Darth Vader Lego head. How many pieces was in that
It,
altogether?
it was like 800, which isn't huge for a Lego set, but like it's a decent chunk.
800. 800 is all I do. So I get there, and we're all hanging out, we're watching UFC events, and every once in a while, I keep looking back over him. I keep looking back over at him, and there's more done, and more done, and more done, and more done. And in 30 minutes, he like completed a good amount. And I was like, Charlie, how do you do this? How
It's
is
gonna
this even
grow.
possible? Like, what? No lie, no cap. I put this on everything. In 2 hours, if not under less, he completed this whole set. Like, please show them. Please,
Yeah.
this is a superpower. This would take me a month if I could even finish the project to begin with.
All
But
right. I messed it up when I picked it up a bit, but I'm just trying to
this
fix it real
this
quick.
was amazing to watch him do it so fast. He made that. He made that. And other people might be watching like, oh, I could do that too. I could do that too. Yeah, I bet you could. Watching him do that in like less than 2 hours was amazing to me. And I was just everyone around was like, David, like they were saying it's a big deal, but I was just going overboard because to me, my brain cannot do that. It was just so crazy to me. Show the camera again, bro. Show the
Yeah,
camera.
I was trying to fix it because I broke it when I picked it up. But
Show the whole thing. Show the whole thing. He did that in less than 2 hours. Like, bro, to watch him do that was, and at one point, after like the third time of looking at him, and be like, "What's going on here?" I just watched him do it, and it was boom, 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 boom. I was blew my mind. So to me, I think that's an advantage. I think that's a superpower, because I'm assuming most of the neurotypicals. Well, I'm gonna say that, but most people can't do that. I'm just gonna put it out like that. Most people can't do that.
yeah, it's definitely like it's fun to be able to like just like look at something and get it done in one go.
Yeah, like the same way how when people draw, it blows my mind how people can get a picture in their head and put it on paper and it looks
Oh yeah.
beautiful. But okay, so next one. Do you think that autism affects your love life?
Uh, I think it does definitely. Like just in the context of like struggling socially in general. Like I
Mhm.
think because I emote differently, like because I just present differently. I don't know what assumptions people make when they look at me, but like people notice that I'm different. Like they maybe notice they can't read me or like I'm not what they're looking for in a person. So I don't know. It's like I would say it's generally hard to meet people and like connect with people, and it's hard to find like romantic relationships because of that. And like even within a romantic relationship, it's hard because I'm not necessarily like empathetic towards the other person in the same way that like they're empathetic towards me, kind of. Like I've only ever dated people who are like not autistic, so it's definitely like hard not fully being able to understand like what they need emotionally. I'm like trying to have to bridge that gap.
Well, if you ever need advice, you ever need whatever, even if you're faking the funk, I could try my best. But
Thank you.
listen, I'm not married. I don't have any kids, so I'm probably not the best person to get advice from. I'm about to be 32. I'm still trying to figure women out, bro. They're the most
Yeah.
confusing, and I don't mean nothing against my ladies. I don't mean to be misogynistic, nothing. But women are the most confusing creatures on this planet. I swear to God, they're just. I love them to death, but they're just so confusing. And my coworker, and I said this in my first interview, my coworker was saying how men are so confusing, and I was like, men are confusing, women are confusing, and we went back and forth. We said those same two sentences,
Yeah.
same two phrases, back and forth, and so we both, and then we gave examples, and then we both were just like, all right, yeah, listen, we're both confusing. Neither one of us knows what the other one wants, but
People who are different, I think, are confusing.
oh my god, so confusing.
And then like
Um,
something else that affects my relationships is like
okay,
my like social battery and social stamina. Like obviously like everyone like has some limit to like how much they're comfortable socializing, you know, like but it's a lot shorter for me than it is I think for a neurotypical. So you know, like when you're in a relationship with someone, you have to spend a lot of time with them, and like that by itself can be very taxing for me, like even if the person isn't.
it can be draining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I definitely get that. Like, yeah, no, bro. I feel you're coming from on that.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
a little bit complicated to talk about because so many of the issues they're having are like issues that like anyone would have, but like I think just the degree to which someone who's autistic struggles with them like can vary a lot and be a lot more than a neurotypical might. If that makes
yeah,
sense.
I pray one day you find somebody who is conscious enough and woke enough or aware enough that they can love you for you, knowing the difficulties you go through, and also understanding that you might not exactly be able to what reciprocate the same thing back, but they still know that your heart is in the right place and that you love them. So I hope you
Yeah.
find somebody like that one day, bro, because I'm still trying to find somebody, man.
It's hard. I mean, I think the person I'm with now is really special to me, and I think she is a
Oh, you
lot
got.
of the
Oh, yeah,
things.
that's right. I forgot you got a girlfriend
Yeah,
now.
yeah. It's just, you can never know what the future holds. So like I don't wanna like make any promises or claims, but it's definitely like the best I've found so far.
Oh, I'm proud of you, my guy. I'm proud of you. All right, so we're getting close to the hour. I can't tell because of all the, all the snippets, but I like to end these off with a certain way. What would you have to say? All right, what would you like to say to people who are ignorant to autism, who just don't know about autism? What would you like to say to those people? Because I'm sure there's people that are the people that are finding this video either have it, have a relative that has it, a best friend that has it, or a lover that has it. So, what would you like to tell those people?
I would say like don't have any assumptions, and if you want information, like take it from someone who is autistic. Like go on Instagram and uh find influencers who are autistic and listen to their experience, because like the usual answer to someone being ignorant is like learn about it or you do your own research, and that gets really tricky with autism because so much official documentation and like so much real like medical research is done by neurotypicals, and like the DSM-5 that we were looking before, like it's excessively negative. Like it's not an accurate representation of what like someone who's autistic, like it doesn't accurately reflect what their experience might be and what their needs are. So I would just say like if you want information, find someone who's autistic and learn from them. Don't just Google something and then make assumptions. And
Is
don't
ba-
yeah.
no, sorry, no, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was saying it's basically like a blind person trying to tell you what they just read in a book. They don't know what it's like to be autistic, but they're just looking at it from the outside in and trying.
Yeah.
That wasn't the best metaphor, but like you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. Like take like just like get the information from someone who actually like has the context for it. Like don't just do research and make assumptions.
That's why I started this. That's why I started this channel because I was making videos on certain diagnoses and I realized I don't have this. I'm only looking at it from the outside in. I still can't put myself in that person's mind. So instead of doing all that, let me just ask the person that's going through it. You know,
Yeah,
get their word, get the word of mouth. Like like.
for sure.
And my second question is, what do you have to say to people who have autism, who are growing up, the teenagers, the kids, the older people, people that have it? What would you like to say to them to maybe better help them, maybe blend in with society more, or whatever the goal is? What would you say to them? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get yeah, for
Not
sure.
exactly blend into society. Whatever the goal is for an autistic person and whatever they want or whatever you want as an autistic person from everyone else, what would you say to that autistic person that's probably looking for the same thing?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. Like before I knew I was autistic, like I think I had a lot of the same assumptions about autism that like the rest of society had, that like it's a disability, that like we have so many deficits and like there's so much wrong with us. But I would say the biggest thing is like just to know that like your experiences are still valid and your needs are still yours. And I think like to stand your ground, because society works so hard to like try to change you and try to make you fit in a certain way. And I think it's really important to stand your ground where you can and like be who you are as authentically as possible, and not try to be worried about uh like being what society wants you to be.
So basically, be yourself.
Yeah. I think that's like what so much happiness comes down to.
It really does. Like I said, I'm about to be 32. Only in the past 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months, I've finally be, began to become okay with being myself.
Yeah. And
100.
I think this is like I mean, I think I've thought about it in this context, but I think it would apply in any context, is to also do your best to surround yourself with people who have that like same mindset. Like you don't
Yes.
want to surround yourself with people who are being fake, because then you're going to get sucked into that, and just gets so toxic for yourself. And
Yeah,
like,
no, continue.
sorry, I was gonna say, just especially being autistic, like it's so hard to find people who are willing to be understanding. And I think it's so important to like have people who understand who you are and like fully accept you for who you are. I think.
That's why those Saturday nights when you were there, me. By the way, Jacob just called me. He wants to hang out in a little bit. But you, me, Jacob, Emily, Erica, like we're all understanding of each other and and it's
Yeah.
like it makes it. And like we were playing Catan the other night, and like even though I was kicking that ass, I cursed. I was
It's okay.
cheating. I was cheating by accident. I didn't know the rules, but it's good to surround yourself around people who, even if they don't understand the actual symptom criteria and all that, just to surround yourself around people who accept you. You
Yeah.
know, and you have that. You have that with me, Jason, Jacob, Erica, Emily, and I guess you might be one of the lucky few. So people might watch this video and they might not have that, unfortunately. And it's important that they find that.
Yeah, it's hard to find for sure.
Definitely, man. Like. All right. Well, you know what? It's basically, I don't know. It might be 50 minutes in, an hour. I'm not exactly sure, but I guess we'll wrap it up there. Is there anything else you want to say?
I mean, I think we talked for a while. I think we covered all the points that I wanted to address.
That was good, yo. This was a really good one.
This
This
was.
might be this might be my favorite one so far, bro. This is a really good one. I like the way you articulate yourself. You're way better at it than me. I stutter. I'm trying to get it out. Like, this was a really good one,
Yeah.
Charlie. I ain't gonna hold you. I'm not gonna hold you.
Like, I've never had someone be so curious about my autism and like ask so many questions and then like actually listen and understand. So that was like a good experience for me, just to get to talk through so many of the things I think about but like don't get to share.
Well, I'm a very not throwing shade. I'm a very empathetic person.
Yeah.
As long as I'm given the right context, I could put myself in someone's shoes, and I can give, and especially if they're asking me for advice. As long as I'm given the right context, I can tell you. I can put myself in your shoes, and I can tell you, well, you can do this or you can do this. But if you do this, this is going to happen, and this might happen after that. But if you do this, this might happen, and this is definitely going to happen after that. So you got to make your own decisions. But I'm very empathetic. I'm very. It's not easy for me to put myself in an autistic person's point of view, but I'm very understanding, and I like learning how other people's brains work. And I like asking the right questions. And I'm gonna be mad at myself because later on, this has happened already. I'm gonna be mad because I know there's gonna be questions that I could have asked, that I didn't think of, that I didn't write down. But we could always do a part 2.
We can, for sure.
Always do a part 2. Charlie, it's a pleasure. Jason and Emily just had the baby, so Saturday nights might be canceled over there for a little while. But like, you always welcome to come to my apartment, or maybe one day I'll shoot down to the city and I'll come see you for a little bit.
That'd be lit for sure.
That'd be lit.
I'll let you know next time I'm back in Westchester.
Next time you're back in Westchester, bro, especially if you got the car, just pull up.
Oh yeah.
I'm literally a 10-minute walk from the Bronx.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, all right, man. I really appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you being open, vulnerable, and I really like the way you articulated yourself. And I hope that everyone else watching, whether you have it or you know someone that has it, I hope you learn something from this. For real.
Yeah, I hope this was helpful too. If at least one person sees this and gets happier about themselves, then it's worth it for sure.
Yeah, this is what I do it for, man. All right, Charlie. I'm gonna end this.
All right.
And then I'm gonna call you right after because I gotta ask you something.